Singapore isn't doing enough to achieve its net zero targets. Now, that's based on a majority of respondents in a new survey by the Sustainability Energy Association of Singapore. It says that the results underscore the need for more impactful opportunities to address climate change. 70 association members from across the public and private sectors took part in this survey. More than 2/3 of them believe Singapore isn't moving fast enough to meet its net zero targets. Over half of them think Singaporeans will be somewhat affected by climate change in the next 10 years, despite actions taken, while nearly 1 in 3 believe that Singaporeans will be badly affected. The members surveyed also believe that the 3 biggest opportunities to advance regional climate goals are cross-border collaboration, more definitive policies, and more green financing. For more on this, we have with us in the studio Kavita Gandhi. She's Executive Director at SEAS, and Christoph Englin, Managing Director at solar solutions provider Energetex, which took part in the survey.
Right, Kavita, let's just start the conversation with you. So you polled 70 members of the association. Results, on the surface at least, look quite discouraging. Not many believe that Singapore's net zero ambitions can be met. Were you surprised at this sentiment?
We were actually surprised because on the surface level, you see a lot of good news about sustainable energy, sustainability in general. However, I think net zero is a huge ask. We are a city country with limited resources. And at the moment, for example, most of our energy is being imported. So similarly, as we move towards the renewables, we also have to look at what are the new technologies that are coming online. For example, hydrogen, CCUS, storage, all are not really price competitive right now. So I believe that is what is fueling that sentiment about, that we may have challenge. On the other hand, I feel if we look at a Green Plan 2030, there are very clear indicators in that how we're going to be meeting those targets. And I'm personally very optimistic that we should be able to achieve that target if we stay on course.
So, Kavita, this price competitiveness is a sticking point. How are we going to move that along at a quicker pace that we need?
Right. So, I mean, there are a couple of things. One, of course, Singapore is putting in a lot of money in research and development. And globally, there's so much of research and development going on. I think we can look at solar in the same way. I believe we can ask Christoph, when he started his business, what was the price of solar and what it is today. So we expect that the prices will drop. And on the other hand, I think we also have to price carbon correctly. In Singapore, we have a carbon tax right now, which is slated to increase as we go along. So as we start pricing the carbon correctly and as the technology prices drop, we'll reach a sweet spot where these technologies will become viable.
Yeah, let's bring Christoph in on the conversation. Kavita mentioned price and cost there. Solar's been around for a long time.
It has,
right?
yes.
You guys work with corporates, you guys work with individuals. What's your sense of how they perceive solar energy in Singapore at the moment?
It's changed a lot, John, since about 10, 15 years ago, when you just had a few either corporates or individuals who were idealists and prepared to pay what it took to put the solar panels on their roof. And now 2 things have changed. The cost has come down by a factor of 2 or 3, and the cost of conventional energy has gone up by 20 or 30%. Those 2 combine to make it very compelling. And so now you've got the situation that both corporates and individuals are doing this primarily because it makes wonderful commercial sense. And without that, there's no sustainability. People talk about sustainable, ecologically sustainable, but without commercial sustainability, it doesn't work. We're now in that situation. So we find more and more people and companies wanting to put solar on their rooftops.
So it's becoming more equitable. You've got corporates doing it, you've got individuals doing it, but there is this perception as well that to install these solar panels for individuals, for private individuals, it's going to be expensive, or the maintenance of it as well is prohibitive. I mean, would you disagree?
I would. In fact, we're finding the biggest demand is coming from individual household owners. So in Singapore, that means landed property. For them, it's very affordable. When you compare with the price of a COE, installing solar on a roof is often only half. That's the first thing. Maintenance is very low. They realize this. And they're simply doing their maths and finding out that putting the money on your roof gives a far better return than the stock market or the banks.
Kavita, coming back to you, the association believes that there needs to be progress made, on policy making at the regional level, particularly. In terms of what specifically is needed, what are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, for most of our members, Singapore is a good market, but it's not enough. They all like to go beyond the national borders. And when it comes to some of the countries in the region, which are the easiest markets for them to explore, we find that there are a lot of policies that are not so clear. There are subsidies in many countries, which makes, and very low prices of electricity. So that makes renewable a little bit hard for the renewables to play, so to say. And basically also there's lack of clarity. There's some changes in rules, permitting, licensing, etc. However, there are a few countries in the region which are showing a lot of promise. Vietnam being one of them, Philippines, to some extent Thailand. They were very early movers. Yeah, and even beyond that, to go to UAE, for example, there's a lot of opportunities there. So we really encourage our members to look at these markets. We recently took a business mission to UAE with our companies, where we looked at some of the opportunities there, and very promising.
Christoph, are you hopeful of more collaboration when it comes to these, this sort of cross-border relationships regionally? Is it going to make a difference for our personal, sort of this push towards net zero?
Yes, I think it will do. And we often say that Singapore is renewable energy disadvantaged. In fact, like any city, Singapore is energy disadvantaged. No city procures its own oil or gas from its own territory. We always import it from somewhere. Now the question is, instead of importing fossil fuels, can we import renewable energy? Can we import electrons, typically, because electricity is the most useful most useful form of energy and can displace many others. So we bring cables in, and I think this opens an opportunity for people in neighboring countries to build solar farms, build storage systems, supply that electricity to our market, and we're willing buyers.
Obviously, it's a very interlinked ecosystem, the one that you're talking about, and really complex undercurrents throughout the whole ecosystem. Kavita, the survey that garnered this response, 36 minutes on average for each respondent to complete. Is there any effort on the association's part, perhaps, to engage, the corporates on a deeper level, to just understand a bit more about their views and concerns, and perhaps how the association can help?
Yeah. So basically what we do is we have various committees and working groups within the association. For example, we have a clean energy committee that's chaired by Christoph. We have a working group on hydrogen, on storage. So these are, and various others, carbon as well. So these are the forums where we dig deeper, where we really try to, get the views from the ground and then see what are the solutions. We also act as a bridge between the private sector and the government sector. So when we see all these views, we have certain dialogue sessions with government agencies. Very often we invite them to some of our meetings to have a more collaborative approach and to understand a little bit better what the government is thinking and how can the private sector pull along with that.
Yeah, and hopefully if the survey is repeated next year, the picture may be a bit more optimistic.
Yes, we hope so.
Thank you very much for coming into
you,
studio
John.
and
Thank you
speaking
for
with us
having
on
us.
this subject. We've been speaking there with Kavita Gandhi from the Sustainable Energy Association of Singapore and Christoph England from Energetics.